prick of a finger. Chapter 2. It was the day of Paige's 16th birthday, and her parents pretended that they had forgotten. So, Paige found herself fetching some water in the nearby stream by a grove. It was a chore she often did, but in this case, she knew it was an excuse to get her out of the house. Regardless, she filled her buckets with great care, not letting the liquid slosh out. Her light brown hair and purple eyes shined off the light that came in from the canopy of branches above her. She truly had grown into one of the most beautiful girls in the land, but she only knew herself as a small village girl. She didn't pride herself in her beauty because she felt so different from everyone there. Most of her friends had wings and could use magic. She knew she must have some magical blood in her because of her eyes, but otherwise, she was a misfit. She hoped she would be given an answer on the day she turned 16. She knew her parents hadn't merely found and adopted her. There was more to it than that. Before Paige stood, she looked down at her reflection in the water. She understood so little of the world she lived in. She sighed and took the water buckets back home. That was when she heard twigs snapping and the trot of hooves drumming at a fast pace. She looked behind her shoulder to see a boy bouncing around and being dragged by his cape that was snagged on the Pegasus saddle. Due to the wild motion, the boy dropped the sword he was holding. What the Paige questioned as she set the buckets down, but then a troll stomped past, following after the boy. She froze for a split second. She didn't even know giants and trolls still existed in Terranil. After a while, she couldn't stand sitting there as the boy yelped and bonked his head. Paige ran into the woods and picked up the sword the boy had dropped. Then she dashed off to help. Finding them was easy since they cleared a nice path for her to follow. She found them where the stream began, and the boy was climbing a rock wall, close to the small waterfall. The troll stood on the main ground, lifting a large stone to throw at the boy. Paige ran forward, picking up her own rock and throwing it at the troll. The troll turned around shouting at her in a deep voice. She lifted the sword and prepared herself to get in close. While she did that, she shouted, "Hey big guy! Come get me instead!" The boy looked at her with annoyance. Miss, I wouldn't do that. This guy's out for blood." Paige ignored the boy as the troll took his stone and threw it at her. She ran for it, making her way closer to the troll, little by little. The stone cracked and its remains scattered. Soon, she was close enough to slice the troll's stomach. It only provoked the troll further. With his hand, he swatted her. She flew into the stream water, dropping the sword and getting soaked. Her gut was definitely bruised, and she resisted the urge to vomit. The boy had gotten off the rock when the troll was distracted. He ran for his sword while the troll was occupied with Paige, who was getting out of the stream. Like the boy beforehand, she found herself cornered by the large rocky hill and the troll. Unlike the boy though, she didn't have the time to climb as the troll grabbed her. She yelped, her sides aching from when the troll batted her into the stream. The troll brought Paige to his face and stared at her. "You'll make a pretty wife." Paige's mouth gaped open. "Wife? No way." She bit his fingers around her as hard as she could. His grip on her loosened and she fell free right back into the water. That's when she threw up her breakfast. Behind the troll, the boy managed to slice at the troll's leg. With more pain afflicting him, he bellowed in pain. At that point, he wouldn't stop until both Paige and the boy were dead. The boy ran to Paige and took her arm, dragging her back to the woods. "Hurry, we gotta get out of here." Paige pulled her arm away. "But he'll just get us." "I have a better idea." She ran off in the other direction. Reluctantly, the boy followed her while muttering something about reckless girls. Once the troll got a hold of himself, he ran after them at a quick pace that would prove to be dangerous. Paige and the boy came out of the trees into the open where the floating piece of land ended at a cliff. They both faced the troll as he neared them. "We're going to jump to the side when he gets closer," Paige explained to the boy, thinking he was a simpleton. He looked at her and said, "Yeah, I get the idea. I'm not an idiot." She raised her eyebrows at him, wondering if he knew how ridiculous he looked earlier. Unfortunately, she couldn't comment as the troll was upon them. They both jumped aside as the troll leaped at them, only to fall off the cliff. Paige stood and shouted, "Yes, bravo to us." She turned to the boy, only to see he was already on his way to the stream. "Hey, wait! What now? Do you want me to take you home or something?" he said, not trying to cover up his irritation in the slightest. "Excuse me? I saved your life. Don't you think I deserve to know who you are and why a human boy is here?" she asked, running to catch up. He stopped abruptly, making her ram right into him and lose her balance. "Look, don't call me a boy. I'm much older than you, and if you really want to know, I'm here to get something suitable for my fiancé." Paige crossed her arms and studied him. His chocolate brown hair, emerald eyes, and most importantly, his fresh face of a young man. "I bet you're only 2 years old than me." She reached for his sword while starting to say, "And what made you think I didn't know how to use a..." The boy grabbed her hand before she could take the sword away from him. Their eyes met for a moment, but he tossed her hand away and the contact broke. Girls shouldn't have to use weapons. It isn't right. They shouldn't be saving people either. I swear, more and more of you think that you can slay dragons and fight an army by yourself. I don't get it. I hope my fiancé isn't like this," he stated, marching off to find where his Pegasus ran off to. Paige laughed. "Fair enough, I did lose my breakfast. But more importantly, you haven't met your fiancé? Do you even know her name? Just go away, all right? You've already taken away my dignity as a man today. I don't need you following me around too. You totally don't know who you're marrying. That is sad. And you traveled all the way here to find a gift for her, only to get attacked by a troll. What did you do to set that troll off anyway?" Paige kept pressing, getting more curious about his story. The boy turned to her sharply as they made it back to the waterfall. "Yes, I don't know anything about her besides her parents keeping her inside all the time. They claim she's a beauty, but of course, no one has ever seen her." She nodded, meaning she's super ugly because why else would they hide their daughter away? Or maybe she turns into a beast at night. "Ack! Do girls ever keep to themselves?" he responded by storming off. Paige continued to follow him. "Actually, yes. I keep lots of things to myself. I have been for many years. You just happen to be the first person who is the same race as me." He slowed. "Huh? You're a regular human? Not a fairy?" "Well, sort of. I was left here by my real family." His eyes stared into hers. "I guess I thought you were a fairy because of your eyes. They look like a light purple. I've only seen fairies or mermaids have eyes like that." As he was distracted by her eyes, he tripped on a rock. Paige caught his green cape before he fell. She laughed. "What kind of nobleman are you? Do you naturally stumble over everything like that?" The boy straightened his clothing. "Of course not. I bid you farewell, miss." "Hang on," she shouted, "you never told me about the troll or said thank you." He walked off, leaving her where she stood. She decided it wasn't worth the trouble as it had been fun to tease him. He probably thought putting up with her questions was a good enough thank you gift. But then she realized neither of them had asked the other's name. Paige shrugged, thinking it wouldn't matter because it wasn't like they would meet up ever again. He was disagreeable anyway. Despite his rude comments, there was that moment where their hands touched. It was a strange and warm feeling. She would have thought his touch would be icy to match his personality. She made her way back to her water buckets. However, when she came out of the thicket, she found a Pegasus drinking from her 2 buckets even though the stream was right next to it. Grumpily, she sighed. Judging by the saddle on the Pegasus and its color, she recognized it as the boy's. It seemed as if they would end up meeting again after all. That was going to be a blast. And to top it off, there were dark clouds above. Within time it would start raining. She debated what she should do. The Pegasus approached her, looking at her expectantly. "What?" she asked, then she closed her eyes for a second, trying not to regret what she was about to say. "All right, I'll help you find your master, but you're carrying my buckets. Though, we might not need the water if it is going to rain. Let's hurry and get this over with." Paige mounted the Pegasus. Before she knew it, it shot off into the sky so they didn't have to make their way through trees. While the Pegasus seemed to keep its eye out for its master, Paige found some interesting things strapped to the saddle. One of the items was a decorative dagger. It had gorgeous jewels on the handle and on its sheath. Carefully, she pulled the dagger out. The blade was just as beautiful. Her purple eyes reflected back at her as she read the words that were engraved on the blade. "Beauty isn't kind. Kindness is beauty." She looked off and wondered, what a thought to write on a dagger. I wonder if he stole this from that troll. It is something a troll would obsess over. She smiled to herself when she thought of something better as to why he had the beautiful dagger. Just as she put the dagger back, the Pegasus lurched downward, free-falling with the sprinkling rain. It landed in front of the boy who was exploring the area of the woods, closest to the edge of the island. He gave a tense look when he saw Paige on his Pegasus. She watched as he came closer, gritting his teeth. "What is this? You stole my Pegasus?" Paige scoffed. "Stole it? First, you don't thank me, then you accuse me of stealing? I found your Pegasus and decided to bring it back to you. I'm sorry I didn't leave it there for you to find. I knew you weren't heading in that direction. Miss, can you just get off before it starts to downpour? I really need to get back down to Avani." "It's Paige," she said bluntly. He started to laugh. "They named you Paige? Are you going to be a page when you grow up? Open doors for people and all that." Paige took the dagger out and waved it around in the air. "And what about you saying girls shouldn't have weapons? It's the gift you decided to get for your bride, isn't it?" He raced to her, dragging her off the Pegasus. In his struggle to get the dagger from her, they slipped on the muddy ground. Unluckily for them, they fell to an area where the heavy rainfall made a horrible mudslide right off the edge. Their slip led them right off the island entirely. Together they screamed as they plunged downwards through clouds. They knew it would be a very long and scary drop. The Pegasus was faithful though, as it dived down to get them. Once it had the boy reached out and pulled Paige into his arms. The Pegasus flapped its wings forcefully, clearly not accustomed to working in the hard-hitting rain. It made sure to land away from the edge. They didn't want to repeat what already happened. "Sorry," the boy mumbled, still resting his hand on her back. Paige smiled, handing him the dagger that he put back where it was before. "It's all right. I teased you too much about the dagger. It was a personal matter. I shouldn't have pried about your engagement." She coughed and shivered from the cold rain. The boy took off his cape and draped it over her shoulders. "I don't suppose you live around here. I might be stuck on this island for a while. Yeah, it's not too far from here, she said, guiding the Pegasus to her house. To both of their disbelief, the Pegasus galloped in a great hurry. The boy immediately wrapped his arms around Paige so he wouldn't fall off while she held onto the reins. The Pegasus slowed when they reached the first house. It was Paige's. When she had gotten over her racing heart from the quick ride, she told the boy it was hers. He got off first, then he politely helped her down. She took his hand and slid off the Pegasus, only for the Pegasus to bump into her. She crashed into the boy's arms. The boy scolded his Pegasus, "Hey! What was that for?" Then the boy swore he heard the Pegasus snicker. "Oh, I see how it is. You planned it along with the speedy trip. I'm engaged, remember?" Paige chuckled. "I don't think he understands you, but he sure makes for a good wingman." "Hee hee, get it?" "Yes, how amusing, but he knows." The boy cut off when he glanced down at her, at least he only planned to glance. Her eyes sparkled just as roses did when raindrops fell on them. He lost all of his words and forgot that she was still in his arms. She tilted her head, then she spotted some blood on his cheek. Most of it was washing away from the rain, but she could tell he was scratched up pretty badly. You're bleeding. Plus it seems your Pegasus has found his own way to our stables. We have 2 Pegasuses of our own." His hand went to his cheek and dabbed at the blood, letting go of her. "It appears so." "Well, let's head inside," Paige said, leading him to the front door of the house. Paige opened the door to find a surprise waiting behind it. Peter, Cecilia, the 3 fairies, and Tori held up a cake and presents. They were about to shout out happy birthday when they saw she wasn't alone. Their excitement died. Who is this?" Cecilia asked. The boy, who was a bit shocked that he ruined the surprise party, still stood outside in the rain. Paige grabbed onto his collar and pulled him in so she could shut the door. "This is a boy I met in the woods." "In the woods?" Peter shouted, clearly worried about what kind of man the boy was. Paige laughed. "It isn't like that. I actually aided him in fighting off a troll." Peter's mouth twitched. "How is that supposed to comfort me? I thought all of them were captured or dead." "Cool. I want to see," the 5-year-old Tori shouted with more volume than what was needed for an inside voice. "Tori, I'm sure you don't want that at all. Please, won't one of you act like a normal girl?" Cecilia laughed. "Oh Peter, they get it from us. We practice shooting every day, remember? And you've shown them the great pixie." She trailed off, looking over at the boy, but he was still in shock. Beth, one of the fairies, laughed at the boy's expression. She was on the Plumpier side and had dark red hair. She was also a notorious tease. "He's like a stone. Is that the only face he makes? It's kinda cute, though. What's your boyfriend's name?" Paige glanced at the boy, remembering she still didn't know his name. Instead of admitting that she didn't ask or know, she blushed while yelping, "Cute? Boyfriend? But he's engaged to someone already." "Oh, what a shame. I thought he was the one you're supposed to meet," Beth said thoughtfully. "Beth!" Cecilia shouted. "What?" Beth asked, feeling like she had been betrayed. "I thought we were going to tell her about." Cecilia quieted the fairy and then nodded her head to the boy. Beth understood what she was getting at and stopped talking. Paige watched all of them, confused out of her mind about what was happening. Tia, who had mint green hair and was the root cause of Paige's jealousy of fairies, spoke up. "What is his name, Paige? You still haven't told us." Paige blushed once more. She looked at him and guessed a name, Devon. "He is a regular human like me." All the adults looked at her, skeptical of her answer. Tori, being a gullible child, ran forward to the boy shouting the fake name Paige had given him. The little elf girl latched herself into his leg, and he finally came out of his daze. "Hey, what are you doing?" he asked Tori. "Hugging you. We're friends now. I'm officially inviting you to Paige's B-Day." Tori shouted up at him while she smiled brightly, "You can sit by me." The boy looked at Paige. "It's your birthday? Is that what all of this is for?" Paige laughed as she took off the cape and set it to dry. "Sure is. I'm officially 16. His mouth fell open. "I thought you were younger. For sure a girl like you would be married by now." "I'm not sure how to take that, Devin," she said, winking at him. "Devin," he mumbled to himself, following her to the table where everyone sat down. "Just roll with it," she whispered as Tori came between them, squeezing a present through. "Open this one first," she shouted, "it's my favorite." I wanted to try it on, but Matilda said I couldn't. Matilda, the third fairy, leaned forward in her seat and snatched the gift away from Tori. She was the oldest of the fairies and had dark blue hair that barely touched her ears. "Actually, we aren't opening this one tonight." Tori's shoulders slumped. Why?" Cecilia came to Matilda's aid by telling the child, "Well, as you said, it's a gift we all love, and we believe it should have its own special day to be opened." The girl crossed her arms, definitely not happy they weren't opening the gift tonight. Paige laughed and scooped the girl up and set her on her lap. The boy watched in awe as Paige transformed into a compassionate maiden, but nothing had changed since they met that afternoon. He just wasn't paying attention. "How about we blow out the candles together?" Paige asked. Tori nodded, looking at the perfectly lit flames. It was almost strange how Tori acted around the fire. She was more attracted to it than most people, which was a bad thing for a child of her age. Peter slid the cake over to them. The mixed assortment of people started to sing Paige a happy birthday song. When they were done, they told Paige to make a wish. She thought for a moment, then with Tori's help, she blew the candles out in one go. Smoke filled the air.